Hello, I'm Incarnate, bringing you all the latest indie gaming goodness. Today, we are doing the 5th part of our Project Zomboid tutorial series. And today's episode, as you can see in front of me, is going to be focused on combat and weapons crafting. We are going to go over some of the weapons you can find in this game, how to create makeshift weapons to craft your own, and then finally we're going to go and crack some zombie heads. Now, people ask me how I managed to rack up thousands of kills in this game, and the answer's simple. You need to get good at combat very fast. If you want to play this game on the harder settings, fighting the zombies and fighting them in large numbers is inevitable. Thankfully, the zombies can be manipulated to a degree, and you can make combat go in your favour. When things don't turn in your favour, that's when you look to your weapons and also to the environment to help tip things in your favour. Now, as you can see, it's very quiet at the moment, so I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these weapons. Now, I found each of these weapons and crafted them using materials found in the warehouse, and that is why I always suggest for you, if you know the map, to find your way to a warehouse, because the warehouse will have abundance of materials, weapons ready to go, and also the materials to create your own weapons. Now, the first thing that you will find in most houses and most sheds is the hammer. The hammer is pretty common, so it's reasonably safe for you to use the hammer as a weapon. Now, I don't recommend ever using the hammer until you break it. So if you are desperate and you have nothing else, then use the hammer. The hammer's a pretty good weapon to make. But you can also make your own hammers out of rocks and sticks. I'm going to show you that later. The next weapon you'll find is the baseball bat. Now, this is the best melee weapon you can get at the start of the game for combating multiple enemies. The baseball bat can be equipped in one hand by equipping primary, or in both hands by equipping in both hands when you right click on the weapon. Now, this weapon is very good in that it does a lot of damage in two hands, and 9 times out of 10 it will knock zombies to the ground. It's a good weapon to safely attack zombies when you're starting off and you're not very good at combat. It's a very good all-round weapon, and I usually will carry one with me on my looting runs. It's a little bit heavy though, that's the only downside. This is a tire iron, and again, this is like the baseball bat. It's swung in the same fashion. It can only be handled in one hand though, as you can see. Now, this is a very good weapon if you don't have a spare hand to use. So you can equip a bag on your back and a bag in your secondary hand, so in your other hand. So if you don't have a spare hand, then this is a great one-handed weapon to use. And my preference is towards one-handed weapons when I'm on looting runs, because I want to be able to carry as much as I can. Now, as you can see, there's a zombie coming here. I'll demonstrate how to use this weapon. We'll take a swing, the zombie hits the ground. Now, we can either hit them again until they die, or we can use our stomp move. Now, this is a better way to kill zombies and a good way to preserve your weapon durability. Take a swing. When they're on the ground, stomp them out with the spacebar. A very good solid weapon. I always recommend. The other advantage of the tire iron is that it's made of metal and it takes a very long time to break. You will be able to crack a lot of zombie heads before this breaks on you. It's even more durable than the baseball bat. And at the moment, it doesn't have a use in the game, so you can safely break these and not worry too much about them. So I'm going to put this back down and we're going to move on. Steel pipes. Now, I don't recommend using a steel pipe unless you are desperate, because steel pipes actually have a crafting recipe later in the game. They're used for several items, including upgrading the mine. They're used for creating some of the metalworking items in the game. I don't know all of the recipes off the top of my head, but I do know that this is a very, very useful item, and it can actually be made later in the game once you get a mine. But just for the start of the game, don't use this unless you're desperate. The hedge cutter can be used as a knife. Now, the hedge cutter is also can be used to upgrade your baseball bat. You can actually pull the hedge cutter apart and add it to a baseball bat. So I don't recommend using this unless you're desperate. But this acts as a knife. So it has the same sprite as a knife and is used as a stabbing weapon. It's used to one-shot zombies. This is not the best weapon to use as a knife because you've got other options which are better. But again, if you're desperate, these are usually found in any shed or any of the warehouse areas as well. That's another pipe. Moving on, we have a hedge trimmer. Now you'll know what that is because I've been using that. That is a makeshift axe. And again, I don't recommend using this in combat unless you have to. It's better used to cut down trees to make some of the more makeshift weapons we're going to come to in a moment. So this is something you would not use as a weapon unless you were desperate. The machete, again, I keep this because it's a very good lightweight weapon and it's also very good for destroying doors. So in your travels, you'll find doors that are locked and sometimes there won't be another way in. I always carry a machete or an axe to break down a door. I don't recommend using this in combat, again, unless you're desperate. But again, all of these weapons can be found commonly in the warehouse. And at the start of the game, you should always carry at least one of these weapons with you. Never go unarmed. Now we're coming on to the weapons that we can now craft. These are the weapons that you can craft at the start of the game and require only a carpentry skill of 1. First of all, we have the quarterstaff. Now I believe you don't need an actual carpentry skill to make this. It doesn't come up in the menu there. Yeah, no, it does. This does not require a carpentry skill, which is excellent. Now, the quarterstaff is easily made from a tree branch. Now, a tree branch, if you've been watching my previous episodes, you will find heaps of these when you cut down these trees. Let's go and grab one. Now, there are 2 weapons that can be made from a tree branch, and both of them are very good in their own way. But I tend to lean towards knives, as you know. It seems like I picked up all of the... here we go. There is a tree branch. So tree branches can be used to make a quarterstaff, a wooden spear, or a wooden stake. So they're 3 very good weapons, and all you need is a knife or a machete and a tree branch. So the first one, the quarterstaff, with a knife in your inventory or a machete, right click on the tree branch and you'll have the option to make quarterstaff. That's all you need. 1 knife, 1 tree branch. You'll basically clean off the rubbish off the tree branch and turn it into a reasonably straight stick to use. It's then used in the same manner as the baseball bat. It is a 2-handed weapon and is best used in 2 hands. The next weapon is a crude wooden stake. Now, again, you only need a machete and a tree branch. Right click on the tree branch and you'll have the option to make a crude wooden stake. Now, I don't use these because they break very quickly, and your better option is to find some planks, cut down a tree. Now, if you don't have a saw, this is your next best option. And they will get around probably a dozen kills before they break, so they're not too bad. But I prefer, if you're going to have a tree branch, to use it for a quarterstaff, because this is a bit more sturdy. Now, the next weapon you'll all know is the mainstay in my arsenal, until I get myself some bone knives, the wooden stake. These are very easy to make, very sturdy, and are overall one of my favourite weapons in the whole game. Now, I've already gone over how to make these, but again, the recipe is 1 plank, a saw, and a knife. In our case, we have a machete. right click on your plank and you'll have the option to make a wooden stake. For every plank you have, you will get 2 wooden stakes. Now there's one more thing that you can do with wooden stakes, is that you can harden them. I'm going to show you how to do that now. Unfortunately, I did forget my cigarette lighter. So we're going to go and get one now. I hope I can find one in here. I believe I saw one in the last episode. The cigarette lighter will allow us, there we go. The cigarette lighter will allow us to harden the wooden stake. Now, hardening a wooden stake, basically, if you haven't ever hardened wooden items before, thankfully in my youth I did a little bit of woodwork. Hardening the tip of the stake means burning it slightly with a cigarette lighter, which basically will make the end of the stake harder. I'm going to try and find a broken wooden stake. I've got some old ones here. It doesn't matter. Now, right click on the wooden stake and you'll have the option to harden the wooden stake. The recipe for this is just a wooden stake or a broken wooden stake and a lighter or matches. This, at the start of the game, if you find a lot of lighters and a lot of matches, this is a really easy way to get some really long-lasting weapons. And I always, at the start of the game, will harden my wooden stakes because they will last twice as long. You'll get around 30 or 40 kills at least with one of these. Very, very good, reliable weapon. Now, if you happen to break a wooden stake, you can actually harden a broken wooden stake, and that will fix it and let you use it a little bit longer. And that's a bit of a cheat. So you can use a wooden stake until it's broken, then harden it, and then use it again. Moving on, we have some weapons that are less reliable, but if you're desperate and you don't have a saw, so you can't turn planks into wooden stakes, you can use planks as a weapon themselves. This is a spike plank. Now, I don't usually recommend this weapon for a few reasons. One, the weapon is very heavy, and 2, it wastes nails. So the recipe for making this is a nail, a plank, and a hammer. Right click on the plank and you'll be able to make a spiked wooden plank. Now, we can't do that because I've dropped my hammer over here. So right click on any plank with one nail in your inventory and a hammer, and you'll be able to make a spiked wooden plank. Make spiked plank. Where are we? Spiked plank. So as you can see, it actually needs, sorry, I apologize, I've changed the recipe. It needs 5 nails. Now, this, it used to just use 1, but this is very wasteful, and I don't recommend doing this because, as you know, nails in this game are very, very rare and very hard to find. But if you get desperate and you need a weapon in a pinch, this is actually a pretty good weapon. You'll get a few kills, and it's very powerful, and it has a very big range. It's a very good way to kill zombies. Now, finally, we have our plank. You can also use a regular plank as a weapon, and it actually does quite well against zombies. Now, one more thing I'm going to show you is there's a couple of other. Sorry, I'll go over this as well. There's a couple of makeshift weapons that you can make, and these are found through foraging. So when you go out into the woods, you can right-click in any of this area of the woods here, and you'll have the option to forage. I'll go over here and I'll show you. If you look on the top left, this is the woods. So I've been cutting my way into the woods in order to allow us to get in there safely and begin foraging, but you can also do it on the edge. Right-click and you can forage. Now I'm going to go into foraging later in the game, but what you want to do early in the game, if you need weapons, you want to forage for 3 things: chipped stones, regular stones, and tree branches. The reason why you want these is because you can combine them to make some makeshift weapons. I'm going to show you those now. Now there is one last thing you can do with tree branches that I didn't mention, and that is to make a spear. Now, I don't recommend the spear. I don't think it's a very good weapon because it seems to be very weak. So if you're going to make something out of a tree branch, I would suggest the quarterstaff. But if you feel so inclined and you have a machete in your inventory, you can right click on a tree branch and make a wooden spear. Now again, this is not a very good weapon. If you have a stone in your inventory and some ripped sheets in your inventory, right click and you can make a stone hammer. Now a stone hammer is just a weaker version of a regular hammer. This hammer here. Now if you cannot find a hammer, as in you need a hammer for construction, your best bet is to go and forage in the woods, find a stone and make a stone hammer. Now, the recipe for this is tree branch, stone, 1 ripped sheet. You know how to get ripped sheets. The stone and the tree branch are found by foraging. Now, if you're lucky enough to find a chipped stone, you can make a stone axe. And those who've played 7 Days to Die will know how handy that is. The stone axe is the same as a regular axe in every way, except that it can be used as a chopping item for chopping down trees. Very useful if you are unable to find an axe. I managed to find 2 chipped stones. Right click on the chipped stone and you'll be able to craft a stone axe. The recipe for that again is 1 chipped stone, 1 ripped sheet and 1 twine. Or you can use a ripped sheet. So ripped sheet or twine. Now in our case we don't have twine. Oh, sorry, we do have twine. Now I'm going to show you the slingshot. This is the ranged weapon that you can make at the start of the game. It's very simple to make, and at the moment it is bugged. You actually require ammunition for this in the form of BBs, but for some reason you can fire the slingshot without requiring ammo. That's a bit of a bug. This weapon is ridiculously weak though, so it's not really it's not something I would recommend. It's mainly used as a weapon to upgrade your firing skill. But the recipe to make a slingshot is a tree branch, 1 glue item. In our case, the glue item can be a hot glue gun. Now again, glue and hot glue guns are mainly found in warehouses, which is another reason why you want to get yourself to a warehouse. A hot glue gun is the best item because you can find a box of glue and this will give you heaps and heaps of glue. If you can't find that, you can also use a regular glue bottle here. These are a little bit harder to find, but you can also make these later in the game. Finally, you need some rubber bands. Boxes of rubber bands will be found in office buildings. Luckily, we found one in the warehouse here. You'll need to unbox the rubber bands by right-clicking and select Unbox Rubber Bands. Right-click on either the rubber band, the tree branch, or the glue, or glue gun, and select Craft Slingshot. Now, this is a very good, reliable weapon for ranged attacks, and I always, if I can, keep one in my inventory. We have a lot, and obviously rubber bands for some reason are very heavy, and it's a bit of a bug in the game. You can see that I'm actually completely overweighted because of the rubber bands. Now that's it. That's all of the weapons that you can make very easily at the start of the game. All of these weapons are easy to find. Some of them you will get off the bat. You'll find baseball bats in most houses. You'll find tire irons in most yard sheds. You can also find hedge cutters and steel pipes. These weapons are what you should be looking for on day 1, just to keep yourself armed. These weapons are ones you want to craft long term. And really out of all of these, the one that's essential is obviously this wooden stake. So that's it. We're going to take a couple of these weapons now. We're going to go on a little bit of a attack run. I'm going to show you where to find some of these weapons in houses, and we're also going to take on some zombies. But what we are going to need to do before we do anything else is we're going to have to empty up. I am very, very overweight at the moment. I'm also out of water and out of food. So we're just going to dump all of these in our container for the moment to try and give me a little bit of extra space. Go. And we're going to go and fill up our water. And it's now about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so we're going to... I'm going to go grab some food. We need our pineapple. There we go. Now we're also going to have a rest. You can see with combat you never want to try and fight when you are exerted. So we're going to rest. Now I believe I have mentioned this before, but you can rest in any chair or any bed. Right click on the item and select rest. You can see here that my character is just kind of idling, he's resting. You can speed the process up by increasing the time, which we'll do. Now my character is fully rested, he's ready to fight. So I can't carry all of these weapons, obviously, they're quite heavy. But we're going to take the ones that you will find the most, and we're also going to go and look for some. The baseball bat, obviously, is going to be our first weapon we're going to try. We've got a knife-style weapon, we won't worry about these. All of these knife-style weapons function in the same way. We'll take the quarterstaff with us as well. And just for a laugh, we'll take the plank. Okay. So I'm just going to empty up a little bit. It seems that I am quite overweight at the moment, because I'm carrying so many sheets. Now you can see here that we've attracted some zombie attention. Now look at the range on this plank. Now, as you can see, this weapon has a very slow swing speed. The only upside of it is that it has a very, very big range. It has one of the largest ranges of all weapons in the game. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, the plank is now nearly broken. So I do not recommend this as a weapon unless you are very, very desperate. The plank is also extremely heavy, as you can see. It's 3 units of weight. I'm going to drop this on the ground. I don't ever recommend using a plank as a weapon unless it's a last resort. The better bet is, of course, our baseball bat, which we have now. I'm going to show you where you can find some of these weapons. So if you were to start the game on day 1, and you would try and... You always do start inside a house. The best places to find weapons in the game are either in the kitchen or the bedroom areas. In kitchens you'll find knives. You can see here we've actually got some really nice weapons here. A hammer, and of course a saw. There's some really good stuff in here. No weapons, unfortunately. Oh, there's a shotgun and shotgun shells. Now I'm not going to go into ranged weapons in this tutorial. Ranged weapons are very dangerous because they make a lot of noise. Firing a gun at the wrong time can be suicide. I don't ever recommend ranged weapons unless you have a silencer. Now we've approached a house and here's some zombies here. I'm going to take a swing. The zombie's on the ground. Finish him off with a stomp. Some more zombies here. Now I'm going to demonstrate for you some unarmed combat. Because at the start of the game you may not have a weapon. You may be unlucky enough to have a weapon, and I did briefly go over this, but push the zombies away, stomp on the heads. Now if you're not exerted, because we've rested, our push is very strong. So we can push the zombie away, You won't always knock them over, so just keep going. If there are other zombies, you'll need to just keep pushing the zombies away and continue stomping. Now, you can only use this approach safely against a couple of zombies at a time. So never fight more than 2 or 3 zombies at a time when you're unarmed. I would recommend you never fight more than 2 or 3 zombies at a time with any melee weapon. But, as you can see here, zombie snuck up behind us there. So all I'm doing is I'm pushing the zombies away, and I'm picking one of the zombies. If there's 3 of you attacking at the same time, push 2 away and stomp on one's head. And just keep going until you've basically killed all of the zombies. Never try this approach against any more than 1 zombie at a time, or you will get yourself killed. Now you can see here we found another hammer. So hammers are the easiest weapon to find at the start of the game. So let's grab a hammer. And we're going to take on zombies with the hammer next. Now, as you can see here, we've found an axe. Now, this is a weapon I never recommend you to fight with. Axes are very hard to find, and axes are used to chop down trees, which we make more weapons with. It's better off used as a general tool than it is as a weapon. Now, you can see this is a time in combat where we retreat. You have a cone of vision around your character, and if your back is turned, you can't see zombies coming. So there are about 4 zombies there, and I don't recommend fighting any more than 3 at a time. As a new player, I would say 2. And we've knocked that zombie to the ground. We'll finish him off with the axe. And that zombie's dropped a butter knife. Butter knives are a very, very weak knife, which is can be used in a pinch, but again, I don't recommend using anything except for wooden stakes as far as knives. They're easily replaceable and can be made very quickly and easily. So we're going to remove the broken glass. Now, another useful combat tip is that you can lure zombies to you with the taunt ability by pressing Q. Now, occasionally it will work and sometimes it won't. In our case, that did not work. So we're going to do something I wouldn't normally recommend. We're going to run in there. Now, as you can see, I knocked one zombie down. We push this zombie away. A couple of hits to the dome. Stay down. Beautiful. Done. Never fight more than 3 zombies at a time. That's my rule. I have broken it occasionally, but it's the safest way to go. If there are multiple zombies, you can face the other zombies and use the spacebar and push them away. This is a safe way to create space between you and them. Also, be very careful when using the taunt ability. It obviously will result in other zombies who you may not intend to taunt coming towards you. You can see there that we've pissed off a couple more zombies because I taunted that group. Taken that one out there. Now let's try another weapon. You've seen the hammer. Let's try our quarterstaff. I'm going to equip this in both hands. Now this weapon swings very fast, as you can see. And it's a very effective weapon in 2 hands. Now in one hand it's almost useless. But as you can see, it has an extremely big range, comparable with that of the plank. Now unfortunately, you can see the result of me taunting has gotten a small pack of zombies. So this is when I would say this is a time to retreat. Now a good way to lose a pack of zombies is to weave around trees. If you break contact with them, they will eventually lose sight of where you are. Now, as you can see, a couple of them are still coming. They've tried to find me, they can't. And you can see here that I'm ducking in and out. I'm trying to only piss off a couple at a time. You can see there's now 3 of them coming, and I can handle 3. It's a little bit more than 3. Now this weapon is one of the ones that strikes multiple enemies, so this is a very good weapon for crowd control, as you can see. Now I wiped out that whole pack. This is a very, very good weapon, the quarterstaff. It's best used in two hands, but as you can see, I killed about 6 zombies there, and I'm also lucky enough to find myself a firearm. Now again, the firearm is not something that you should be firing at the start of the game, and the one rule I will give you is to never fire a firearm close to your base. It's very loud, it will attract zombies, and is a very good way for you to commit suicide. When you get a silencer later in the game, or when you can fashion one, the firearms will then become useful. They will even become more useful when you can craft ammunition, but we are at the start of the game and are very far off that stage. As you can see here, we've found ourselves an axe, a survival axe. This is the final thing in the game, the axe, and I'm going to show you how to use that. The survival axe is a very, very powerful weapon, and it's also very, very lightweight. It only has a 1.25 weight, so it's about half the weight of the regular axe, and it does comparable damage. This is one of the weapons that is a very good weapon for you to go on a looting run with. As you can see, very strong. That couple of swings kills a zombie. This will hit multiple zombies and is also a very useful tool for cutting down doors. Now if this door was locked, we would just simply approach the door and hit it with the axe. It will take about 12 to 14 swings to knock down a door, but in some cases you will need to break through doors. Again, you can see we've got multiple zombies on us. Now the problem with the survival axe is that unlike the regular axe, it does not hit multiple enemies. The regular fire axe does. So this weapon is less useful. In this case, the baseball bat or the quarterstaff is probably a better option. But let's go over our knife weapon, the wooden stake. I'm sure you've seen me use this before, mainly because we're kind of outnumbered at the moment and I need to get serious. Let the zombies approach one at a time. Let them get close enough to begin their biting animation, and strike. This will give you an instant kill. Now, I don't recommend doing this unless you really know what you're doing. If you get your timing wrong, they will bite or scratch you. So, again, this is a very high-risk weapon, but it's an essential skill to master. I don't ever recommend doing this if there's multiple zombies coming at you. As you can see, I pushed the other one away. I'll wait until the last second, right until he's up into my face, because if you don't, you just get a regular stab, which doesn't do very much damage at all. As you can see. It sometimes knocks them to the ground, but sometimes it will not do any damage at all. You want to wait until they're right up in your face. The same thing can be used with the butter knife. Butter knives are found everywhere. They're found in kitchens and in most stores, food stores. I'm going to jump over here. You can see there I got a regular hit with the knife, and it really didn't do any damage at all. You want to try and go for that finishing strike. Now, let's just assume that this is the house that you've started in. We found a pump action shotgun, which is great. These are the two areas where you're going to find weapons. You'll find knives, mainly kitchen knives and hammers in these counters. This is a good place to find a weapon. You'll also find baseball bats and your larger weapons like golf clubs in these cupboards here. And this is always somewhere where you want to search. You want to look in here. This is where you'll find your baseball bats. This is where you'll find your golf clubs, your weapons. These houses are the best places to find weapons in. The warehouse is obviously really good to find raw materials, but you'll often find golf clubs, you'll find baseball bats, you'll find hedge trimmers, you'll find knives, kitchen knives, all different types of knives. Here we go. Unfortunately, we haven't found anything in this house. We'll check these counters here. And this is a farmer's house, so again, we're not going to find anything here. Let's try one more house. I'm going to show you ranged weapons, and then we're going to call it a day. Try the house over here. Now, one thing about going into houses, you can see here we've got quite a bit of a pack of zombies here. We're opening the window and we're letting them come to us. Now, with the knife, I can't fight any more than one at a time. I'm pushing one zombie away. Now, our weapon is broken. Now, one thing I should mention, if you have a weapon of each type in your inventory, you will access your knife weapons with the number 3. You will access your larger striking weapons like the baseball bat with number 1. And you will access your ranged weapons like the slingshot with number 2. So if I press 2, I'm going to pull out my slingshot. Now I'm shooting at this zombie. It doesn't look like it because the weapon doesn't have a skin at the moment. And that's just an issue with the Hydrocraft mod. As you can see, I've got a hit there. Now, at the start of the game, your chance to hit with any weapon is based on your ranged attacking skill. So unfortunately, because my ranged attack skill or my aiming skill is virtually at nothing, my chance to hit is very, very low. Now it appears that in the latest update they've actually fixed this, so this actually doesn't, if you hit a zombie, it doesn't actually increase your aiming skill. So we'll actually have to use a firearm to level up our aiming skill, as you can see, at 0. So they've fixed the problem with the slingshot. So let's get serious and finish these guys off. And let's have a look in one more house. Now you'll notice that I'm doing a 360 spin. And that's to counteract the character's cone of vision. If I'm looking this way, I don't know if a zombie's approaching me. I do a quick spin with the mouse. Okay, I'm good behind me. Turn around. Take him out. Now, I found some really good weapons here. We've got a Druganov. Now, I'm not going to fire the gun because that's going to get a lot of attention on us. But I am going to try and get into this last house here. Now, we're doing something that I wouldn't normally recommend. We're actually raiding at night. And that's something that's very, very dangerous and can be fatal for you. But for the sake of entertainment, we're going to keep going. Always check every zombie corpse you come across. The Hydrocraft mod does add a chance to find weapons on zombie corpses, but the vanilla game will also add a chance, if somewhat small, for you to find an axe or a knife on a zombie. So you will always find something of use. You see here we've got lots of guns. Now, one interesting thing is where I think I have mentioned this before, but we are using the ORMtnMans Guns Mod. The ORMtnMans Guns Mod gives us firearms in this game, and we do, as a result, have a pretty high chance to find firearms on any dead zombie. As you can see here, I found several weapons on this zombie. It's a little bit broken at the moment, the drop rate. The drop rate for guns is too high and the drop rate for ammo is too low. Now we've found here a couple of makeshift weapons. We found a butter knife, and if you were really desperate you could use that. We've found nothing else, unfortunately. So we haven't found many weapons, and this would be a good example of getting yourself to a warehouse so that you can secure some. There are no weapons around, unfortunately. Oops. What was that? Nothing. Okay, and that's it. That is my combat tips for the early game. What I suggest you do is we'll fight this last pack just as a bit of a refresher course. We have multiple enemies coming towards us. Back up Only ever fight 3 zombies at a time. Always make sure that you are armed with at least 1 weapon. Push zombies away if there's too many of them. As you can see, we are tired, and we are also winded. Our character is exerted, moderate exertion, so our attacking strength is lower. Push zombies away, make an opportunity to knock them to the ground, and use your stomp attack to stamp on them if you can. As you're fighting, always do a 360 turn, occasionally to make sure that your back is clear. And always make sure that when you're fighting zombies, if you want to try and lead some to you, use your taunt. If you ever find yourself that you are completely overwhelmed, a very easy way to lose zombies to lead them into a house and then go out via one of the other exits. The zombies will lose track of you. As you see, they'll wander into the house and they won't know where you are. And then you've gotten away scot-free. If that was a giant horde, they would have run down there, they would have been looking for me, or in the case of this guy, they actually have given up and returned to their original location. So, that's my combat tips. Day 1, you always want to try and find yourself a house. Find a house like this, get yourself at the very least a butter knife, or a knife of some description, a kitchen knife. You'll find those in any kitchen counter, like these. Now, unfortunately, in our travels, we haven't found any knives, but you'll find kitchen knives in these houses, and they can be used as a makeshift weapon until you can find yourself a proper knife, or make yourself some wooden stakes. Then search your cupboards. Search cupboards and your larger, clothing cupboards like this, for baseball bats and larger weapons. Finally, when you've got some weapons, make your way towards a warehouse, start gathering resources and stocking your base, and then start looking at making some weapons. You want to prioritize getting a saw. Now, there was a saw in this house, as you saw. We already have one. You want to try and find a saw, and you want to try and find an axe. Once you've got those, you want to start making wooden stakes. When you've got some wooden stakes, you're pretty much right to go. So that's it for our tutorial. I hope that this has given you a bit of an insight into combat. Remember my golden rules. Never go out unarmed. Make sure that you never fight more than 3 zombies at a time. Always retreat if you find more than 3 zombies at a time. And always make sure to push zombies away. Use your stomp attack as well as your regular attack. Try and preserve your weapon durability. And always, the last rule is never rely on weapons in the world for a long time. These will eventually break. These will eventually become unavailable to you. You want to start gravitating towards these easy, quick weapons to make as soon as you can. And the easiest way to make all of these weapons is to find a saw, an axe, and make some wooden stakes, make some clubs, make some quarterstaffs. They're easy to make, and you can find them by cutting down any tree. They're a very simple way to get yourself armed very quick, and they're replenishable. There's a whole forest of trees. I will never be able to use all of those trees. And wooden stakes function better than any knife because I can carry plenty of them, and they're pretty light. They're actually a little lighter than the kitchen knife. They're the same weight as a butter knife or any of the other knife types. The last tip I have is to make sure that you don't use tools as weapons. You don't want to be swinging away with an axe on zombies unless you have to. You don't want to be swinging away with a hammer on zombies unless you have to, because these are better used for construction. These are better used for their intended purpose, like gardening. It is the better purpose to use a shovel with. Now, if you break these items, you're not going to be able to use them, and in some cases, they're very hard to find. So that's my tips. Be careful about what weapons you have to use. Make sure that you can create some weapons very early on, and you'll never run out. Alrighty, so hopefully you enjoyed this, and we will see you for the next tutorial. Skill Incarnate out.